wherever you find dinosaur fossils, it looks like a catastrophe and a death. I mean, what is a fossil? It's the remains of a once living thing. It's dead. Like this Camarasaurus. Say that, Camarasaurus. Looking at this sauropod, and I'm thinking to myself, how did he get locked in rock? Obviously, mud must have come over. Mud must have overwhelmed this strong creature and covered him, and then the mud must have dried quickly and turned into sedimentary rock. By the way, look at that hip. Isn't that great? I love that hip. Clever design in that hip, but catastrophic death in the way that he's preserved here. Does this happen today? Do we have cows in the field that become locked in rock? No, because today's processes, rain, snow, don't produce these fossils. We don't have this kind of catastrophic death, burial, and preservation. This is pointing to something unique, something very, very different than what happens normally according to everyday processes that we are familiar with. Something unfamiliar to us must have done this and done something else. And I couldn't put it more clearly than the way these scientists put it. The post-mortem dorsiflexion disarticulated the zygapophyses such that it was preserved in a pose that was unlikely attainable in life. Clear as mud. In other words, whatever overwhelmed him and buried him, it was so catastrophic that it broke his neck. That's what that meant, broke his neck. Catastrophic death. We see it in all these fossils, including the fossil, say this, Compsognathus. This is in the Jurassic Park movie. This is the little dinosaur that jumped all over the big fat guy and ate him. It was really creepy. Okay. Anyway, so these are the compies, and I'm looking at this text, which I got from the National Geographic book on dinosaurs, and here's what it says. Luckily for scientists who know everything, Compsognathus lived close to the shore of a calm lake. They were there, they saw it, they know. Calm lake. After death, the animal's body sank to the bottom of the lake, and the calm waters ensured that the bones were not broken before the process of fossilization, which probably takes millions of years, could begin. Now, I've seen a lot of calm lakes, and I've swam in them, and what's this? I've canoed. I remember canoeing in a calm lake, and I was the guy in the back of the canoe, and the guy in the front would take his paddle, dip it down into the bottom, and stir it up so that all the rising fumes would reach my nose right about the time we float over it, and sulfur and nasty mud and muck and worms and germs and stuff down there. And guess what? No fossils! What happens to a dead fish? What happens to an animal when it dies and sinks to the bottom of a calm lake? It gets metabolized. It gets scavenged. It rots. It does not turn into this fossil. I don't think this story is true. I don't buy this calm lake business, because when I go to a calm lake, I don't see fossils. I see worms, germs, and mud. And these creatures are completely recycled into the environment. So we see Compsognathid-like dinosaur buried. Here's one from China here. And look, his neck is arched back. This is kind of a death pose that we see lots of dinosaurs in. And look, this guy with the long-tailed dinosaur, neck arched back. Yeah, I can see it now, you know. The calm waters took his head and wrenched it back to his rear end. That's what the calm waters. What's with the calm waters? Not calm. Catastrophic. Total catastrophe. Lots of mud, lots of water, moving that mud. and taking these creatures and bending them, and they're choking. This might be a death pose where choking, I can't get a breath, I'm breathing in mud. It's like, draw the chalk line around the death scene, and you get a catastrophic death happening here. So catastrophe related and intense that you even have dinosaur bones that have been disarticulated, pulled apart, mixed with bones of other creatures, like frogs, turtles, lots of small mammals that might live in trees, swamp animals, fish, sea creatures, all mixed together along with plants. What's this plant? Palm tree. I show this to people in Texas and they go, I don't know. Palm tree, people. Go to California once in a while. What's below the palm? Fish. Right there with dinosaurs. Swamp and sea creatures mixed together in mud. Total catastrophe. Some kind of catastrophe takes swamp creatures and mixes them with sea creatures. This is Stan, the famous T-Rex, and he's on display at the Hill City Museum in South Dakota. It's in Hill City. I don't remember the name of the museum. Okay. This guy is from there, and he's giving me a thumbs up. So, okay. By the way, this is what you look like when you give your camera to someone and say, please take my picture, and they don't count down. But I'm here, and this is Stan, and Stan is in a pose, and he's going to give me a catastrophic death in just one bite. Big T-Rex. Incredible. And so I'm thinking about this guy. I'm thinking about this, T-Rex, and he's 7 tons. And I read the literature because I'm a science writer, and so I want to know what the secular scientists are saying about how these fossils formed. How do you get a 7-ton creature who can pretty much walk anywhere? He's like a walking tank, can go wherever he wants. How do you get him into a fossil? This is not happening today with elephants or any large creatures. It's just even big creatures, even whales in the bottom of the sea get recycled within just a few months or years if it's cold water. But I'm thinking about this T-Rex, and I'm reading the literature, and it says he probably died of natural causes, and then a local rise in the stream bed overflowed its banks. And that's what the placard says here about Stan, the T-Rex. The stream bed overflowed its banks and preserved the T-Rex that turned it into a fossil. The stream bed overflowed its banks. What is this? A little bit of water here? I'm just going to step right out of this. No problem. I'm 7 tons. See, what paleontologists don't understand is that T-Rex was from Brooklyn. I don't buy the stream bed story. He's 7 tons. He can walk right out of it. Whatever overwhelmed him and buried him in mud must have been moving faster than he could walk. It must have been coming in with greater force than his legs could generate. Catastrophic death is what I see here. I see sea creatures mixed with land creatures. This is a fossil that we have displayed at ICR on the walls in our offices. And the dinosaur's name is, say this, Sinosauropteryx. Mixed there with, died at the same time with a sturgeon fish. Looks just like today's sturgeon fish. Here's the thing that I noticed about this. He had legs and walked on land. He had fins and didn't walk on land. They did not live together, but they died together. So something was so catastrophic that it took sea creatures, lake creatures, swamp creatures, and mixed them together and laid them out in these massive mud deposits that quickly hardened into rock, dried, and then we get these fossils. That must have been what happened. Well, how do you get that much water? How do you get that much mud? Because these continents, these fossils are found on every continent. Every continent has dinosaur fossils and other fossils of dead creatures. I mean, it's worldwide, this dead creature, this fossil phenomena. This catastrophic death is under our feet almost everywhere we go, on every continent. Even Antarctica has dinosaur fossils. But what else would we expect if we started with Genesis and read in Genesis chapter 7, and the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth? Oh, there's the water that we need, okay? And all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. By the way, does that mean that the Himalayas were covered with floodwaters? No. The Himalayas were made at the flood, by the flood, when the continents were jamming into one another during the flood and shortly thereafter. These are the high hills that existed in the pre-flood world. Those high hills were completely covered. How do we know for sure? Because we have fossil sea creatures from the peak of Mount Everest. So Mount Everest was once bottom of the sea and getting sea creatures buried, but it was lifted up because of these massive, catastrophic, world-destroying forces. All flesh died that moved on the earth, even dinosaur flesh, even fish flesh. All these creatures worldwide died.